Hey, welcome to episode 65, Ice Ice Baby.
We're getting old.
Yeah, we're elderly now.
Start getting that AARP,
Yeah,
propaganda in the mail.
yeah. I wish I had time to go back and look at, because we've talked about immigration and we warned people about what might happen.
Yeah,
And
I feel like all of those warnings, I'm seeing people starting, to post warnings and memes and things that, like Kamala Harris said during debates, that Trump's going to call the army on you. Like I'm seeing people bring back up all of these, conspiracy theories about Trump and about Project 2025 from before the election. And it's really kind of freaking me out. It's weird because it's all coming true and worse than I think anybody imagined it would be, even the worst of us.
yeah, I didn't foresee Marines being deployed on American citizens this quickly.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that's not going to be the only city. I don't think there's any bottom to this or to what Trump and Stephen Miller Trump's a puppet head. Trump, if he thought that the votes and the power and the narcissism were on the side of the Democrats, Trump would be a Democrat. Like I don't let him off the hook for anything, but he is a glorified narcissistic puppet that other people have learned how to woo and move. And I don't think we've seen the bottom with Trump or without Trump of where this goes. And that's terrifying. You're right. Marines on U.S. citizens unnecessarily. Let's the National Guard wasn't needed. They've said it
didn't get violent until he sent the National Guard out there.
And let's be honest. We're talking about what, a few hundred people at most, and they're probably all Proud Boys. Like,
yeah,
I mean, yeah. People stir.
But even the LAPD released a statement before Trump sent the troops that it was peaceful protest, that it was fine. It was just all narcissistic bravado.
Yeah, I mean, the LAPD, I mean, what has been said to have been one of the most corrupt police forces in the United States is coming out against, Trump, against MAGA, and siding with Governor Newsom. I just read the room, people, but a lot of America's not paying attention because they're in the echo chamber of Fox News, and they've sold their soul to Trump and MAGA, and they can't see alternative perspectives, and that's dangerous, or won't see, or refuse to see it.
Well, yeah, the biggest narrative they believe is the lie that these are all criminals or illegal.
Yeah, that there are millions and millions, tens of millions of violent, criminal immigrants, here, and it's not. It's not true. This is why they're doing all of these raids. This is why they're doing all of these sweeps to pick up anybody. They've said it, because they're not able to find the number of people that they lied and said were here.
Yeah. So they're showing up to legal immigrants, going to their court dates, going through the process that all of these MAGA people said, well, they just need to leave the country and come back and do it the legal right way.
Like they're in the courts because they're doing it the legal way. That's why they're in the court.
They're finding these people. Come on. And then
these are not undocumented immigrants. They're in
the
court system because they're documented. Holy shit. Get a dictionary.
I know. It is unbelievable.
It is insanity. It's insanity. It's like you can literally be looking at the facts right in front of you and deny the truth. It's like Jesus, said to the Pharisees in that one altercation, like, you're calling the works of God and the miracles of God demonic. Like God is literally right here in front of you doing something, and you're so messed up in the head and in the heart that you're transcribing it to the opposite thing, and that's what's happening here. It's just insanity. It's unbelievable. I don't even know what to do whenever somebody has been so brainwashed, and I say this this idiom, knowing, drinking the Kool-Aid, literally. I don't know what you do. I don't know how you wake somebody up from that, and I fear we're at a point where it's almost impossible with a
Yeah.
large group of Christians, sadly, and folks here in the U.S. I don't know, Matt. Give me some hope.
There's none. I mean, I turned on Fox News the other day when all this was going down, and they were saying that they couldn't understand why people were protesting the arrest of criminals, and it's like, so they're hearing that. That's what they're hearing. Oh, these guys are criminals, and they don't realize that like one of these big protests started outside of a federal courthouse where these ICE officers were arresting people as they were coming into their court dates, and then the other spot was the Home Depot, where these guys are obviously not criminals because they're out in the open looking for work for the day. Um, and so, yeah, it's just insanity. And I
I
don't
mean,
think there is any hope.
If MAGA would listen to themselves, to their own rhetoric, mass deportations of violent criminals was where it began. Then it moved from violent criminals to people who have been criminal in any sense of the word. Then it moved to, well, people who are undocumented, or people who are illegal, who aren't in the process. And so now we're at like the third or the fourth goalpost move where it's like, okay, well, anybody here who is from any other country that isn't a U.S. citizen already, and maybe even if you're a U.S. citizen,
Yeah,
get the
a
hell out of
federal
here.
agent,
Like you
a
keep
U.S.
moving
Marshal got arrested the other day.
like you've already moved the goalpost 3 or 4 times and changed who it is that you're going after, and somehow or other you've convinced yourself to believe that that was always what the plan was. Well, what was it? No, because you keep drinking the Kool-Aid. Well, it's not going to stop here. You've already okay. So brown people are being kicked out. What happens when it's half brown? What happens when it's U.S. citizens who have only been here for 5? Like, you think I'm crazy, but no. Read the room. Look around.
Yeah. Soon, I mean, they've set precedent. They're going to come after. I mean, we've called it. They're going to come after people like us.
Yeah. This isn't going to end. This is not going to end with just immigrants, with brown people, because this could only last for so long. There are only so many brown people here. At some point or other, they're not going to be able to have cameras, on all of this stuff. It's going to go away. So who's going to be next to stoke the fire, to stoke the flame? It's the next, in my opinion, the next highest level of rhetoric that they have utilized in order to control MAGA and to control the anger of the nation are trans people. And
Yeah.
it's not gonna stop with trans individuals. You have to keep feeding the beast.
Yeah.
And
No,
we've got what? At best, we've got 2 years of this, another year and a half. At best. At worst, we've got another 4 to God knows how long, maybe a generation.
yeah, it's scary. I mean, I started waking up this week. Oh, excuse me. I don't live in America anymore. It's we're in an authoritarian
Yeah,
dictatorship.
we've crossed the Rubicon. There's no going back. And let's be honest, there is an equal danger in Democrats when they get in power utilizing some of the same tools and tactics in response. I mean,
Yeah, I think
I don't think that's necessarily, going to be the case. I hope that we all learn from this and reset and change the things that are the holes, that are the weak spots. But we've crossed the Rubicon, and unless we as a people stand up against this and close the loopholes on some of these things, this continues long past Trump.
Yeah, I agree. I think. Well, I was watching a thing today, and I had heard this from a friend who's been involved in immigration for a long time. That Obama was actually, he called him the deporter in chief because he deported so many.
He deported more
And
people in his 4-year term than Trump did in Trump's first 4
yeah,
years. Yeah.
and there was no violent uprisings because Obama was a politician and did it very, democratically and savvy,
And
and
humanely,
yeah,
I
humanely.
should say more
More
humanely. I
humanely.
do have some issues with the way the
And I,
Obama
I still
administration.
spoke out. People think I just am a Democrat. I spoke out against Obama back then. I was I've been on this immigration thing I for a long time, and I think as a Christian, our theology, our view of God is that all are welcome.
Yeah,
All.
what it shows me is that you have never met somebody who is an immigrant. What it shows me is that you have never worked or been around people or the communities who are a part of this undocumented worker, what you might call an illegal alien, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can't interact and be around these people and know the truth and see their stories and act or react the way that it is. We as a society, especially as a white Christian society, have essentially become, safari Christian. You stay in your own colorful country and we'll come and visit you for a week or two and build a well so we feel better about ourselves, or lead a Sunday school, and then come back to our homeland. Your homeland? What the hell? Your homeland. You want us to stop immigration or letting immigrants in? Yeah, right after your family got here, right? You're an immigrant. You come from immigrants, all of y'all. Who are we? Who are we?
Yeah, I loved how the German chancellor highlighted that Trump was a German immigrant. His grandfather immigrated. We all
Stephen
are. I mean, that's America.
Stephen Miller's family as well, right? One
Yeah,
generation back, his one generation removed from what Poland is. Wouldn't be here, wouldn't be in power, wouldn't have had the opportunity to have the role in the position that it. I what is it with people who are so close to having immigrated here, having so much hatred for other immigrants? I don't
that
understand
is
it.
that is a real thing because he carried the Latino vote, and I talked to some Latinos that regret their vote now because now they're seeing family members get deported and their churches get decimated by ICE.
Yeah, living in fear,
And but yeah, it was a real
Homeland
hatred.
Security entering a first grade class in LA and wanting to do wellness checks and remove first graders without parent lying, in order to get in and do it. And Homeland Security said, yeah, these are our guys. Um, I mean, at first I bought the line from folks like Trump and Stephen Miller, people who come from immigrants. That's part of their story. And Latinos, as we did it the right way, or our family did it the right way, and we want others to do it the right way. That's no longer, you can't use that line anymore, because now you're sweeping up and kicking out people and actively advocating for people to be removed who are doing it the right way.
Yeah,
So
no,
what do you do it? Like
it's
what are you doing?
evil and
It
illegal.
is. There's no other word
Yeah,
for it than it is. Then it's evil.
it's antichrist. I like to use that term online. Is try to clarify who the actual antichrist is because evangelicals love to talk about the antichrist, and I don't ever think it's like one person. I think it's a culture, and we are living in a very antichrist culture that many Trumpers think is Christian, and that's part of I think our heart behind this podcast is to identify Jack theology, and there's Jack theology that leads to what's happening. It all comes back, I think, to theology, and there's a theology of I talked about it this weekend in our service. Pentecost, comparing Pentecost to Babel, the Tower of Babel, and how they're very similar, where they all understood the same language, and the Babel story is, and I think Babel was destroyed because when you don't have God at the center, you don't have the heart and the love. The language of God is love. You don't have that at the center. You end up going into your tribes and you split up and you try to, Babel was about being the most powerful and building the tallest building, and it was about them. And so when that happens, tribes settle in and it's like, no, my tribe's more important. No, my group of people, my family is more important. And that essentially, I think America has become Babel, where we say people that are like us are more important than those people, and so we're gonna do whatever we can to keep those people out, and it is destroying our faith. It's destroying our country. And we got to return to kind of Pentecost. We got to return to the spirit, the language of love and acceptance and invitation, that God invites all of us to be a part of his family, that all are welcome, that, the Pentecost story is Peter speaks his language, and it lists all of, probably at the time, the known world understood in their own language. That is the power of God, that we're all unified, we're all welcome, not just our little tribes. And I think that's an important piece of this theologically, that it's hard to convince anyone otherwise, because you got JD Vance sitting up there saying, as theology in chief, that, this is the order. It's my family first. And then after all of these things, we worry about the rest of the world. And of course, now Pope Leo immediately called him out, and he even said Augustine said that. And here you have an Augustinian cardinal at the time, who's now Pope, calling him out, saying, nope, that's not it. That's not what Augustine said. Was hilarious, and I loved it. But that's who they're following. They're following JD Vance, and which you and I have talked offline. He's even scarier
Yeah,
because
JD Vance far more dangerous, I think, to me than
yeah,
Trump.
he actually has a brain. Trump doesn't. Trump's easily manipulated and wooed, and you just follow the almighty dollar of Trump, uh, and you'll figure out what he wants to do. With Vance, I think it's the opposite. It's power for him. It's manipulating, gaslighting to gain power. Um,
Yeah, I don't think under normal circumstances JD Vance is probably electable because JD Vance just isn't very likable. He's not really able to work a crowd, like a politician really needs to be. But we're in we're in a totally different world now. Um, I think all bets are off. I think it's highly unlikely that we have another election that isn't highly contested or managed in some way. I don't know how I don't know how MAGA, everything that they've done and continue to do, I don't know how they let go of power in any way, shape, or form because there's way too much on the other side of it. They've gone too far. A lot of them are going to go to prison. At the end of the day, for the things that it's just it's a cancer.
well,
And
that's the scary part, right?
what
That
you said about
they know that they are doing illegal things and will likely go to prison if they lose an election. So they're going to do some shady, what, to win and stay in power.
and they've learned what moves people, and I know folks have drunk the Kool-Aid. So barring, which is possible and sadly scary, that this is perhaps the only hope that we have is that something extremely catastrophic happens to change the mood and make us look in the mirror for just a moment at ourselves. A September 11th, or I'm saying something that is so grand in scale that it causes so horrific, here on U.S. soil, from us, by us, for us, that it causes us to look in the mirror long enough and say, wait a minute, something's wrong here. Something that grand where that many people lose their lives and wake folks up. And you're talking about Jesus, and I'm just like, I so resist the urge under normal circumstances to call into question people's salvation, but I don't understand how you support right now in any way, shape, or form what is going on. And you're right, antichrist is the only word that I can think of there. I don't know. Jesus' primary message was love your neighbor. It's woven through everything that he did and everything that he said and taught in any way, shape, or form. And this is the antithesis of the love your neighbor. And they just people keep doubling down. I don't, I would, I'm not going to say you're not saved, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I don't see any way, shape, or form that the Spirit is inside of you, that you're in any way, shape, or form filled or being formed by the Spirit of God. And I would, if I believed in eternal conscious torment, I would say if I were you, I would be very weary of showing up and facing Jesus, with that being the end result of what you're doing.
Yeah, they're gonna have a lot of explaining to do on Judgment Day. That's for sure. A lot of extra grace given. Um, yeah, I'm 100% with you. I don't see Christ in them at all, and they don't even argue. I mean, we've said this before, but they don't even really argue Christ anymore. They'll jump to Old Testament passages or nitpick Pauline passage.
Yeah,
Mostly
I
Old
think
Testament
I
stuff.
think you're right. At this point, they understand that there's nothing religious or faith based in what they're doing. Even the whole. You're right. They don't even argue it from a Jesus standpoint, and they very rarely now even argue it from a biblical standpoint. Not even that we have the right to protect our borders, or the Bible teaches that. I think that most of them, thankfully, have at least given up this mirage, this joke that Jesus or the Bible or the Christian faith in any way, shape, or form supports this, and have just kind of said, this is extra biblical. I'm going to do it and support this anyway, aside from my faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But let's be
I
honest,
mean,
the pastors are still preaching it. The Christians are still, warring and voting
well,
for it,
I mean, this is what they've always wanted, right? The biblical worldview folks, the James Dobson, John MacArthur, Christian nationalists. Um, this is been their whole aim, is to have some semblance of power and authority, and so I think probably some of them turn their backs on some of these things that they know aren't right, because, like, I think to your point, their ultimate agenda is to kick the trans out, to end gay marriage, to go after some of their moral clauses that they have, and so for them, you know, the ICE overstepping. What I've seen a lot of is just ignoring. Right, you bring it up because they'll continue to say they're criminals, and then you bring up hard evidence that they're not, and they'll just ignore it, and then move on. So, but I think their real agenda is, and why I've gotten such volatile feedback on Pride Month. I think that's their real agenda, which is scary because now they have the military on their side, and yeah, and I heard it's crazy. I mean, the Promise Keepers. Did you go to Promise Keepers when you were growing up?
No,
Yeah.
somehow or other, I successfully avoided ever attending one. Our church was not really into it, but I was very aware of it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but I
So I
successfully avoided
I
ever going to
did.
one.
I did. I did a march on DC, and
Oh, dang, you were way into it.
yeah. I mean, I was a teenager, so my dad made us all, me and my brothers, go.
I feel like you need to take away my, evangelical Christian card, like taking away my man card. I feel like you need to take it away because I never, wow.
um,
Yeah. So what's going
but the
on with,
Promise Keeper president was being interviewed by Fox News. I think
because
I
of
saw this
course.
interview, and he's a hardcore Christian nationalist. You might as well have put like Brian Save or even Joe Webben in place of him. The way he was talking, I was in shock because, I mean, Promise Keeper was very like Christian nationalisty, um, but it was more evangelical. Like, we just want to do this to get everybody saved. That was kind of the message I always like walked away with, and then to be a good father, a good husband, and those sorts of things. And then now, like, hearing him talk, the vision of it is to correct everyone else's morality in the world, like
Hmm.
gay marriage. Like, he wants to go after gay marriage, and I was kind of shocked at. And so it's very Christian nationalisty, no longer about Jesus or the gospel or anything like that, but about their moral code, which I found fascinating. That a lot of these big evangelical groups are now like hook, line, and sinker into Christian nationalism, and there's a lot of resistance, which is this is, I guess, encouraging. I saw the other day, one of the guys I follow, Michael Gorman. He's an author, scholar. Um, he wrote that his publisher. I'll have to go back and look, but it was one of the big publishers, maybe in the one that published your book, um, is no longer allowing them to capitalize the C in Christian or the N in Christian nationalists. It has to all be lowercase because they don't view them as Christians any longer. Which
Mm.
I was like, whoa, that's pretty dramatic and pretty cool. That some more mainstream Christian evangelical type, groups, even publishers, are making a distinct stand. So there's clearly the dividing line happening in the church. And this is one of those, I think, markers where you stand on immigration, unfortunately. Because I feel like, kind of rambling a little bit, but I feel like a decade ago, 15 years ago, when I first got into my denomination, that was something we all kind of agreed on, was like kicking out immigrants out of our country is wrong biblically. And I feel like that's completely changed. And there's no longer unity around that topic in the church when it used to be for kind of more let's go reach the world, let's love the world type groups. And I think Promise Keepers was one of those, and no longer is. So
Now let's
yeah,
just,
it's
I
kind of
mean,
sad.
let's just be honest. It's straight up racism. I mean, it's straight up xenophobia. It's straight up Third Reich KKK type shit going on. It's the only explanation for the move from the way you and I were brought up, and welcome the neighbor, take care of the immigrant, look after folks. What we were told to where we are now, and what people are saying now. They're taking our jobs. They're raping our wives. They're it's an invasion of a country of immigrants. How do immigrants invade a country of immigrants? I just
Yeah,
listen to yourself, Christian. Listen to yourself.
yeah.
Who are you? You're not of Christ.
No, and clearly you've never read, the Good Samaritan. You never read Matthew 25. Um,
No,
like,
they're the Samaritan. I mean, they're the Samaritan and the Good Samaritan. No, you're not.
yeah.
No, you're not.
It, I mean, the hypocrisy is just so crazy because some of these folks getting kicked out were people that actually practiced good Christianity, like in Afghanistan, and helped our American troops who are in trouble. Um, and so then the actual American military found got through government policy was able to then list these
Legally,
folks that helped them legally come to America
legally.
are now being deported. Um, like what? I mean, that's the opposite of like turn the other cheek. It's like, well, if somebody it's like somebody does something nice for you, we'll be mean back to them. Like what? You know? Um, it's sad. It's very sad, and Christians don't seem. I mean, evangelicals don't seem to care. And yeah, I mean, not friends, but the Christian nationalists we interact with on Twitter we used to before they blocked us, like Brian Suave and some of those other guys. They state clearly that their Christian community is built around the color of your skin. That non-whites are not allowed in their communities, and yeah, this is part of that. This is where it's headed. Soon, all brown people will be out, rounded up.
It used to be a mark of honor in predominantly white churches, or churches that were white in totality, to have a few people of color there. It used to be it used to be give you some cachet. It used
Yeah,
to be this mark of honor, which honestly I think was a little bit racist in and of itself. But now we're at the point, where
yeah.
you're
For
right,
the
where it's
tokens.
like no, it's not. No, we don't want that. Go be among your own people, and it just where do you see that, as you said, in Pentecost? Where do you see that in Scripture of this tribalism and splitting apart into our own groups? And where do you see that self righteousness? You don't see it, and if you believe Revelation is prophecy, you're not going to see it in heaven. Every nation, every tribe, every tongue, every race. Why do you think God wants it here if He doesn't want it there, where it's closest to Him? Um, you're you're following a pagan religion, and actually, I feel like that's a little mean to pagans to say that. Like it's giving pagans a bad name. That's how effed up you are. Whatever you're giving the pagans a bad name, I mean, calling you pagan. It's even worse than that. Um, at least pagans care.
Yeah. I've received more love from non-Christian, like explicitly non-Christian folks, like Muslim or Buddhist or Hindu, than I have from evangelical Christians in the last 6 months of my life, easily. They've reflected Jesus more to me than any evangelical Christian has, and you know, it's funny because I've been in this discussion last week on the pride stuff, and one of the guys who kept going back and forth with me was legit trying to redefine what love is. No, I love them. And then trying to redefine love is like calling out all the bad things they think they have, that's loving them. And
That's love.
it's like, bro, it's so far from love. And you would never do that with your family. I mean, let's be honest, like he's not going to do that with his spouse. You're going to, not have a spouse for very long if as soon as they walk in the door, you're calling out everything you don't like about them every day, and that they need to repent or they can't relate to you. I mean, what kind of relationship is that? It won't, doesn't last. So yeah, and then even redefining the rules of engagement, which I found fascinating. Like, I'm so happy this guy engaged with me because I think he kind of like is a good anecdote for the way they think. It's like, well, you can't argue that way, and you can't say it like this, and you can't tell me I haven't studied it. You can't use this type of argument. Like, it's like you have to engage them on their narrow terms
Yeah, well,
with their
because
narrow view of scripture.
so
And
often the
yeah,
Christianity that these people espouse is a meme Christianity. It goes no deeper than a couple of one-liners that they've gotten off the internet or from a sermon that stuck.
yeah,
There's
I
there's no
mean,
there's no depth or substance or understanding.
yeah, it's yeah. You can only engage me, on the meme that I know, and my meme's right. So that means you can't possibly be right because there's no argument, which is like insane to me.
Because it agrees with my bias. It agrees with what I want to be true
Yeah,
or what I need to be true in order to continue to survive. And Jesus calls us to death, not survival.
yeah. It calls us, to love, to put others before ourselves, or love our neighbor as
Yeah.
ourselves.
Die to self. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day who I know in real life, in blood. Strong MAGA, was vehemently arguing um, for for MAGA, for removing all of these people of color, and eventually it got down at the end of the conversation to she just said, this is just what I vote for, and this is what I believe. I vote for things that are going to be the best for my family, for my kids, and for me. That's what drives my vote, is what's best for me. And I say, oh well, now we're at the sticking point. This is the crux of the
Mm.
matter, because whenever I vote for things that are better for other people, even if it means I have to sacrifice. And for me, that was like a light bulb moment where I was like, this is, I think, one of the dividing lines, that I can put into words that drives the difference between where MAGA and so many evangelicals and Christians are, and where I am, is this difference between I'm not voting in my best interest or even my kids or grandkids' best interest. In some ways, my beliefs and my votes might actually be voting against those things. And I believe that that's what I'm called to do, is to make sacrifice on behalf of those who are oppressed, on those who are marginalized, on those who have needs that are greater than my own. It's why I wore a mask far longer than most other people did, not just solely to protect myself or to value signal, but to try to protect other people who are vulnerable. It's why I would have gotten the shot even if I knew that there was a risk of death from getting the shot for COVID, because I feel as though I'm called to sacrifice and to risk self over and over and over again in order to help other people. It's why whenever people say, well, let them stay with you in your house, leave your doors unlocked. My doors oftentimes are unlocked, and I would have no problem with somebody who even was an illegal immigrant with a criminal record staying with me, because I feel as though I'm called, if there was a need there, to risk and to sacrifice on behalf of other people. And I think for a lot of Christians, we've misunderstood the gospel, and our response. Now, that doesn't mean being stupid. I don't think being dumb or putting yourself in harm's way, but maybe it does. Maybe it does. Have you read the New Testament? Have you read Fox's Book of Martyrs? Do you have any sense of 2,000 years of church history, the number of times that individuals have, on behalf of their faith, needfully put themselves in harm's way or even sacrificed their lives for the gospel, rather than putting themselves first and saying, no, you sacrifice yourself. I'm not going to do that. I'm not called to that. Yeah, you are.
Yeah. I've thought a lot about that in the world in which we live. And I think we all, as Christians, to your point, have to be ready to do that for our neighbor, to lay down our life for our neighbor. Um, there's story after story throughout history of folks that have done that. The name is, I think, Oscar Romero and his group of monks in Algeria, when the regime was shifting, uh, their whole focus was just to love their neighbor. And so they were ultimately killed because they um, helped and some wounded from the opposition that didn't
Right.
win.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't
And
that what's going on? Has been going on this week with ICE in LA. Is the focus isn't so much on the immigrants. The focus is on those people who are helping them. That's where the hatred really flares. Is white boys. Kevin, Matt, you should be on our side. Why are you not joining us in this Christian fight? In this evangelical fight against
or we'll
brown
arrest
people.
you.
I mean,
I mean,
and,
he's
and that,
threatening to arrest people that are
yeah,
just protesting this. Like
exactly.
what? Like
You spit
Grant
on
Gavin Newsom?
you spit on us, and you're going to spend 5 years in prison. You know, I mean, um,
Yeah,
so,
it's
I mean, that's
insanity.
that's what I hear in those monks in Argentina. Is the problem with them was that they loved the people who everybody else wanted them to hate or needed to hate, and so
Yeah, yeah.
whenever you step in between, the hate filled bigots, and their target, you're going to receive probably double the brutal beating and violence that you're trying that you were protecting from.
Yeah. I mean,
Love,
they got killed.
nothing inflames more. Yeah,
They got killed for it, and so like that may happen here, or you know,
it will. I think it will. I'm convinced it will. We will see a time where, and I think we are seeing a time. I mean, they're using less than lethal, or have been using less than lethal
yeah,
earlier on this week, less than lethal, methods. But whenever whoever it was dropping rocks and stuff over the side of overpasses onto cop cars, a majority of the people who I saw interacting with that were saying it's time to use lethal force. Those people should have lethal force used on them for doing that. I'm not saying should or shouldn't, but I'm just saying we're now seeing people who are standing up against tyranny, and those who are supporting the tyranny are saying it's time to use lethal force against those who are standing up and saying enough, this isn't okay. We're I think we probably already are in civil war, but if not, we're very, very close.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think. I
All,
mean,
all,
the
all.
reason why the Jerzak, I don't know if you follow Brad Jerzak, but he posted the both sidesism is a sin, and essentially when you try to play both sides, you're gaslighting the victim. And I think the whole brick thing is gaslighting the victim. The victims here, yeah, they threw the bricks, but the reason they threw the bricks is, well, one, ICE, we've talked a lot about that, but two, they're shooting rubber bullets at them, right? So like, why do you need to shoot rubber bullets at a peaceful protest that was declared a peaceful protest? Like the violence was started by the state, by the federal government, not by the protesters, and I think that needs to be made clear. And that
Yeah.
now it's all, oh, the protesters are violent. No, I mean, yes, they were, but you can't make it about them and gaslight them. Like that's not the issue here. Um, and so, yeah, I think it's a sin to even focus on that piece. Yes, I'm always against violence,
Well,
nonviolent
it's why you
display,
have to have
but
people in leadership who are interested in de-escalation rather than escalation. And
exactly.
we're in a time in our government where they want escalation. They want the show. They want people to react, and they will get what they want. You push hard enough, you hurt people enough, folks are going to stand up against that kind of tyranny and that kind of hate and bigotry, because that's who we have always been as a nation, is
Well,
people
it's
who stand,
America.
is people, we stand up for others. It's why we've been, rightly or wrongly, so involved across the world. You know, it's who we are. Is we stand up against tyranny. We stand
I
up
mean,
against
our
violence,
revolution
against, yeah.
started because British Marines were deployed against American citizens, and then
It's like
that's
all these Second Amendment idiots who are part of the NRA. You know, like you always said that the reason you were a part of this and had guns was to prevent a tyrannical government, and it's here in what you're joining it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
all of those reasons why you said the Second Amendment was important, and the arsenals that you have in your bedroom closet unnecessarily. It's here, and
yeah.
you're on the wrong side.
Well, I saw
You're on the side
something
of the tyrannical government.
yesterday, a video of MAGA, a group of MAGA getting in their trucks and their guns, heading to California to help the government, and the guy stitched it and was like, from Compton or whatever. He's like, we'd love to have you come down in here into Compton and show. Like to me, that's kind of where this whole Civil War, violent stuff might start. Is MAGA people thinking they can walk into, a neighborhood like Compton and run things and get shot up. Um,
It's gonna
and then
happen if it's not already happening.
yeah, no, it's crazy. It is. I mean, we said it. We said this would happen, at least on multiple episodes leading in and out of the election on this very topic. And so it is. I'm sad to say that I told you so, but we
Yeah,
did. We did tell you. So
Christians allowed themselves to be weaponized, and now they are they're a part of the Roman guard that crucified the brown guy, that crucified
yeah,
Jesus. You know, you're
yeah, they're on the wrong side of it. One of these protests. It was the Minneapolis protests that happened last week. This was encouraging to hear. Was an ICE officer gave an attorney for one of the immigrants going to court a heads up that ICE was going to be there and not to bring her client. And then she got the word out to activists, which is why all the activists showed up to the courthouse in Minneapolis. Which I thought that was, I mean, at least
yeah, and I think that this
somebody.
is part of. I mean, ICE. ICE's so many people who are joining ICE are doing so, as contract workers, because they want
Yeah,
they have little boy dreams on the inside of cowboys and Indians, and they're the cowboy. But I think that this is part of the subversion that we have to hope and pray for, and help legitimize is encourage people who are on the inside. Marines don't really have a choice. They're following orders. National Guard don't really have a choice. They're following orders. Now, should they or shouldn't they? I I know what I think, but whenever you're in that situation, what do you do? I don't know. But there are folks with good heads who are followers of Christ, who are Marines, who are within the National Guard and these other groups, and this is the subversion that eventually brought the Third Reich, to its knees. Was a lot of folks on the inside who stood up and said, no, or quietly subverted in ways that helped and helped turn the tide eventually. We need more of that. We need a lot more of that.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Well, I think we covered it.
All
Some
right.
of the. We'll see where it's at when this goes live.
we may have to put this one live a little bit early, right? Just things are changing so much.
Or we might have to jump on at the end, actually live. All right, let's add some stuff.
Hopefully, if in the event that whatever this goes live a couple of days from now, if there's not a United States of America anymore, and it's been real.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a week. Time for that part of the show where Matt and I close by either celebrating our successes physically and where we are, or confessing our deficiencies. Confession is good for the soul, right? How you been, Matt?
Pretty good. I had a good week. It's good to be back knowing this accountability time is coming. So it kept me pretty disciplined throughout this week. So I'm happy with that. I do have a highlight from Fitness Week. We did this workout. It was insane. I've been describing it like this. You know how they tell you if you eat too fast, like you don't know your body's full, so you overeat, right? So if you want to lose weight, one of the things you could do is slow down while you eat, so you know when you're full, and stop eating when you're full. Well, we did this workout where it's 30 seconds as hard as you can go on the assault bike, and then 2.5 every 3 minutes. So you get a 2.5 minute break, and you're back on. And you do that for 5 rounds. And we got through it so fast, I didn't realize how much it was attacking me, my whole body. And so we get done, and I do the last couple minutes of recovery, and I sit down, and I sat down, and everything in me just locked up.
Oh.
And then everything I had eaten that morning felt like it was going to come up.
Oh.
And I just had this glimpse of Jesus. You described after your heart surgery, you saw the light a few times. I definitely had that, experience. I thought I was going to die. And then we had to do another workout. We had like 10 minutes to get our crap together. And it was just brutal. But I pushed through, did well. I won the bike portion of the workout, so I was very happy with that. And then couldn't walk for 2 days very well.
Anything with the assault bike is like the seventh circle.
I know. I forgot how brutal that can be. So anyways, but all I'd say, I was happy I was fit. So then fast forward a couple days, I'm doing a work project with a volunteer group that I'm part of here in the community. And we're cleaning out this area in the woods, and then we're taking garbage from like an old homeless encampment, like drug encampment, tents, abandoned tents and clothes and just drug paraphernalia. We're putting it in garbage cans and dragging the garbage cans like probably a quarter mile out of the woods into, to the closest dumpster we had set up. And I remember I was next to this guy who clearly didn't work out, who had a really hard time getting it out. And I it was easy for me. And I just remember thinking, boy, am I glad that I work out and do some cardio as well. So I get, my my lungs and my heart strong. So that was encouraging. So I felt encouraged this week in the fitness and jacked area. So
Yeah,
how
I
about
was.
you? How are you doing?
I was thinking whatever you were saying about the accountability of this time together. That's a good thing. I was thinking, we might should every month or two just schedule like a shirtless podcast like that would be accountability, right? But of course we might have to like blur from below the neck or whatever. But
That's
I
funny.
was thinking you're right, there is something important about accountability. Summer is accountability, especially if you're going to be at the beach or near the pool. It's helpful. So I don't know, I'm not necessarily suggesting that we do that, but it certainly would put me back on my fitness game to know, hey, at some point there you go. Show a little skin. Come on there, Matt. Yeah, like it. We'll do that shirtless, but we'll just the camera will be like
Yeah, frame
right
it.
here. Yeah. extreme close up. Yeah, no, I'm doing okay. Energy, from heart surgery keeps coming back. I have now done a couple of times of cardiac physical therapy, which in the beginning, you're doing about 50 minutes of cardio, 40 or 50 minutes of cardio on a bike, on a treadmill, on an elliptical. And for the first like couple 2 or 3 weeks, you're hooked up to heart monitors. They want to make sure that your heart's reacting correctly, that it's not going too high or too low during the workout phases. They're taking your blood pressure every couple of minutes in order to make sure that your blood pressure is doing what it should do, and resting and in exertion. And I walk probably faster at this point than the treadmill is going. Like they start you very, very low. And just kind of easing you in, but it still is like kicking my ass. And it's just crazy how far I have to go. I think just to get back to my lowest baseline before, but I'm glad to finally be back in it. They're trying to stick these leads on, and I have some hair and the leads are falling off. They're like, we're gonna have to shave. I mean, no, you're not. It's Pride Month. You're not shaving my chest hair. I need this. No. I'm very proud of this chest hair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, just let me die. You shaved it once to do the surgery. But it's going okay. Finally able to do that. I'm getting to the place where I'm like, hey, I can start doing some lifting because it's been a while. I'm feeling good enough. My strength is coming back. And then this morning at work where I coach, I got down like in the push up position, and I was like, oh shit. I'm feeling the chest like pulling and feeling that rib cage like shift a little bit, because it's still healing. And I was like, yeah, I think I might just obey and not lift anything, not get out of the push up, not put any more stress here on the chest than is needful, like because I don't want it to be like that alien movie where the chest pops open and everything comes out of the chest. It's like what I'm imagining.
Yeah. That's when you have to have people demonstrate for you.
Yeah,
come over here, Sally, and demonstrate a push-up for me.
Fortunately, the nice thing is up on the screens they have like little icons of people doing all the movements, and I could demonstrate most of it just without weights. But yeah, it's still. I feel like a lightweight, and I guess I am a lightweight at this point. But fortunately, everybody has given lots and lots of grace. But I'm looking forward to being back at. I'm itching to lift weights. I'm itching. I mean, my weight has maintained. I have not been on an eating plan. I've just been kind of eating whatever I want. And since the surgery, which was a little over a month ago, about a month and a half ago, or a month and a week until now, I've only put on about 4 or 5 pounds, which I thought was pretty nice. I probably lost like 15 pounds of muscle. So the net is probably like 20 pound difference. But I'm alive, and there's something to be said. There's something to be said for that, I suppose.
Yeah, you're with us. It's good. You should eat whatever you want for a little while.
I feel entitled to it, but I probably won't be saying that in a month or two whenever I'm trying to work it all back off again.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's life, right? The ups and the downs.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, man. We'll see you
All
next
right,
week.
man.
Take care.
Take it easy.